Brought to you by 1AAuto.com, your source for quality replacement parts and the best service on the internet.
Hi, I'm Mike from 1AAuto. I hope this how-to video helps you out. And next time you need parts for your vehicle, think of 1AAuto.com. Thanks.
In this video, we're going to replace the rear heating tubes on this 2003 Caravan. Same as a lot of these Caravans in town and countries, and they often rust out in the back where they connect to the hoses, and we'll show you how that works. You'll need a new tube assembly from 1AAuto.com, pliers, catch pan, Phillips screwdriver, various millimeter sockets with a ratchet and extension, maybe something bigger for some extra leverage, jack and jack stands, and some extra coolant to refill. You want to start by draining the radiator fluid or the coolant, and under the driver's side, if you look up under the side of your radiator, you'll see there's a drain here. I'm going to connect a tube just to help direct the coolant. If you could turn it with your fingers, do it. If not, use pliers, and you want to turn, it's like a square. The valve is a square. You turn it just a quarter turn counterclockwise and pull it out. And obviously have a safety, or not a safety, but a drain pan underneath, and let the coolant drain until it stops. And once you've started the coolant, you can actually open up the radiator cap, and that'll allow it to drain even faster. Remove the passenger side front tire. If you don't have air tools, start with the vehicle on the ground, loosen the lug nuts, then raise and support the vehicle on jack stands and remove the wheel and tire the rest of the way. There are 4 large push-style pins. If you grab the inner wheel well and pull out, you can see I'm trying to pull out that top pin there. Possibly use a large screwdriver, go in underneath and dislodge those pins. There's another 2 a little over to the right, and there's 1 up above as well. And a pair of needle nose pliers can be helpful to get these out as well. Now remove the 2 Phillips screws that are right on the outside of the wheel opening. And then pull the inner wheel well kind of over to the side, and then back down and out of your way. And then this inner shield is held with 2 pins right up top. I just pull it straight down to get those pins out. We're going to remove the air box. There's a 10mm bolt right here. Remove that. Then use a screwdriver and pry up on the relieve hose and pull it off. And then the airflow sensor, I should have taken a better picture of this, but the airflow sensor plugs in and back. There's a little red safety clip that you pry out with a screwdriver. You can see it there. And then press the tab and disconnect the airflow sensor, and then loosen up this hose clamp that holds that intake tube onto the throttle body. And now you can pull up on the whole airbox and then pull the intake tube from the throttle body. And there is another pin kind of holding it to the side. I open up the box, just undo the clamps. There's a clamp on the side and a clamp on the back, and you can take the top of the air cleaner box off, pull the air cleaner out. And then I realize that there's a little clamp in the side, twist it to the side, and then you can pull the box up and out. Okay, and then one of the cushions stays on the stud, so I just take it off the stud and push it back onto the airbox. Support your engine with a jack. Again, you're not trying to lift the car up with the engine, you're just supporting it. And then you want to remove these 3 15mm bolts. I'll fast forward here as I remove those bolts, and you'll see as I remove the third one, the weight of the engine actually comes off of the mount, and it kind of comes up a little bit. But then once you remove those, you actually want to let the engine down and give yourself some more room at the top, but still support it with the jack a little bit. Now you're going to disconnect the engine side of the assembly, and you're going to disconnect 3 of the hoses that go to the assembly or to the tubes themselves. You can see the red arrows. The top 3 go to, you want to disconnect the clamps from those hoses and those tubes, and then there's another red arrow that goes down towards the bottom. There's a tube that goes down that feeds the engine. You want to disconnect those. You want to avoid disconnecting the 2 on the top because those go to your heater core, and if you try to disconnect them, you could damage the heater core. So if possible, avoid disconnecting those. Okay, I'll show you one here. I'm not going to show you all of them, but you reach back in there with pliers, and some of them are a little difficult to get to, but if you load your engine down, you should have enough room. You get the pliers onto the teeth of the clamps, and then squeeze down and pull the clamps back. And then you'll hear I'm basically twisting the hose, and you hear that crack right there. That I broke the hose free from the metal, and then just pull the hose off and then go to the next one. And just to give you an idea of kind of what I'm doing here, again, take your pliers. I'm just showing you on the assembly that's outside the car. Squeeze the teeth on the clamp and move the clamp off the hose. And then with your hands, if you can loosen up the hose. If you need to, use a screwdriver and put it between the hose and the tube to help break it loose, and then you can pull it apart. Once you have all the hoses disconnected, 10mm socket and ratchet, and you'll need a 10mm deep socket, and remove the nut that holds the bracket onto the body. Now underneath, kind of near where the passenger's feet are, the tubes connect into hoses. So you, again, squeeze the tabs on the clamps, move them back down the hose, and then you can grab hold of the hoses with the pliers, break them free from the tube. Obviously have a drip pan underneath, and you are going to get some more coolant coming out when you disconnect these, as you'll see. Back up top, you'll need an 8mm socket and ratchet with an extension, or an 8mm wrench would work. And there's 2 8mm screws that hold the throttle cable in place. You remove those 2 screws, and then you'll pull the throttle cables down and around to disconnect them from the throttle body. Now use a pair of pliers to disconnect the hose that comes from the power steering reservoir, and pull the clamp off, but leave the hose connected. Only disconnect it when you go to pull the tubes out, because you will get power steering fluid that comes out of there. And then as soon as you get the tubes cleared, reconnect the hose. Now you're going to pull your tubes out. So pull them up and forward, and you kind of rotate them. Let's see, I guess be clockwise slightly. They'll start to get hung up a little bit on your engine coil. And if you haven't taken them off that power steering hose, they'll get caught up in there. But you just see, you give them a little force, pull them out some. It doesn't matter, obviously, if you bend them. They come out Just make sure they don't get hung up on anything. Okay, on the top are my old ones, bottom are the new ones. You can see the old ones had already rusted out once, and they had somebody had cut them off and put longer rubber hoses on. A couple of the hoses I left in the car, so I'm just taking the new hoses off of the new assembly, and I'm just going to hook the new assembly onto the existing hoses because they seem to be in good shape. Okay, inserting the new hose assembly can be an exercise in a little bit of patience. Get the lower end down in first, and you actually almost have the assembly upside down, and then you just kind of keep working it. Force the bottom end of the assembly to the left a little bit, and keep working the assembly past the engine. You can see I just keep kind of motioning back and forth and persuading it a little bit. I'm using some force. I'm bending the tubes slightly just to get them past things. And at the same time, you're kind of rotating it in a counterclockwise motion, and eventually it'll go down in there. There's a bracket that bolts into the brace, and I'm gonna, the bolt was still there, so I'm removing the bolt, and then I'm gonna re-bolt that brace or that bracket in, and I'm just gonna do it loosely for now. On the top side, I'm gonna get that bracket in place and put that 10mm nut back on. And I'll just fast forward here as I tighten that up. And I'm going to make sure I use the new clips as much as possible. Put those on the hoses, and then I'll fast forward, and you'll just have to trust me here that I reconnect all those upper hoses. Here I'm going to reconnect the hose for the power steering, as well as reconnect the throttle cables. And you kind of pull them around, you slide the tabs in, and then pull them back around, and then bolt down the bracket. Okay, now you'll want to jack the engine back up somewhat into place. And now I'm going to put the 3 bolts back in place, and it actually helps if you loosen up the 2 bolts that hold the mount to the vehicle. This lets you move the motor mount around a little bit and get those started in, and I'll fast forward here as I tighten them up. I tighten them up with the air tools a little bit, but then I make the final tightening with the hand ratchet. Okay, put the airbox back in place. There was actually a clip on and harness that I had taken off, so I just re-secure that, then push the airbox back in place, secure it with that 10mm bolt, then put the lid back in place. You push it in and then lock the clips back on. Be careful, I did get the wiper washer hose got jammed in there a little bit. That's why I'm having a little trouble with it. Once I got the hose out of the way, then it went together fine. Make sure you plug in the mass airflow sensor and put that safety clip back in, and put the breather hose back on and tighten up the clamp. And you can remove the jack. Now back up underneath, I'm going to put a couple new clips onto the hoses down here, and then get them onto the new tube assembly. And once they're on there, I'll set the clamps in place and then tighten up that 10mm bolt that holds that bracket. Fast forward a little bit, put that lower cover back in place, and it has the 2 pins, and they're kind of up in there. You just got to feel your way in there and set those pins and get that in place. Now flip the inner fender back in and set it in place, and then put those 3 pins in place to hold it. And then reinsert the 2 screws that hold the wheel well to the fender or the bumper cover. Reinstall your wheel and tire, and if you put the 2 lug nuts on that are opposite the Schrader valve or the fill valve, then you can pop your hubcap on if you have hubcaps, and then put on all the rest of the lug nuts. And then you can let your vehicle down, and you want to make sure you torque your lug nuts to 100 foot-pounds. Now you want to make sure that you reset your radiator drain. Make sure you push it in. It should push in and then turn a 1/4 of a turn from the kind of horizontal position to the straight up and down position. So we pushed it in, and then we needed pliers to turn it the 90 degrees to get it to close. Now you've drained your cooling system totally, so you want to refill it with the correct 50-50 mixture, and you're gonna fill the radiator directly. You fill it, you'll see it come up to the top, and then it'll go down some, and then fill it again until you top off the radiator. Then replace and secure your radiator cap. And then you're going to want to fill the coolant reservoir, and it's over near the battery. And you basically want to fill it to the max fill line. And then you're going to want to start your vehicle up and check for any leaks, get it to idle, get the thing up to temperature, make sure there's no coolant dripping anywhere. And you'll see just in a second as I finish up, we'll draw a little line for you. There is a mark on the bottle, but I also drew a little line for you there digitally. That's basically the max fill line. So you start your vehicle up, get the coolant circulating. This vehicle has rear air. You want to make sure you turn on your front heat and your rear heat as well. That'll help get coolant circulated to those portions of the heating system. And start it up. Monitor your coolant in your coolant tank. Drive it for about 10 minutes. You'll notice that probably the heat doesn't work right away. It'll take a little while for the heat to work. But just check your coolant after the first 10 minutes of driving. Drive it again for another 10 minutes. And just for the first few days that you drive the car, just check that coolant tank and make sure that you're always between the minimum and the maximum. Thanks for tuning in. We hope this video helped you out. Next time you need parts for your car, please visit 1aauto.com. Also check out our other helpful how-to as well as diagnosis videos.